Welcome back to the MSU Deer Labs online seminar series. It is brought to you by the Mississippi State University Extension Service as well as the MSU Forest and Wildlife Research Center. I will be your presenter today. My name is Bronson Strickland, and I want to acknowledge my colleague and the co-director of the MSU Deer Lab, Steve Damaris. As the name implies, this presentation is all about cool season food plots. Want to review everything more or less that we've learned over the past 10 or 15 years. Want to go over the most common forages, their nutrient profiles, which plants work well, which ones work well in mixes, and which ones deer are attracted to. When we're finished with the presentation, my goal is that you are going to feel completely equipped to know what to plant on your property and why. By no means is this every possible thing you could write about or talk about with cool season food plots, but I think it's a really good collection, certainly for people starting out to get you going. Okay, a few thoughts on planting rates. Keep in mind, and I've devoted a lot of time in this in the food plot principles presentation, but you have to base your planting rate on pure live seed. And just very quickly, you have to look at the label, especially for seeds now that come pre-inoculated, then that adds weight to the seed. And so a very quick example is that on many of the clovers you get now is that you may buy a 50-pound bag but only have 25 pounds of seed. So when you go to plant, it cannot be based on the weight from the bag. It has to be on the weight of the seed. And again, I've covered that in great detail in the principles presentation. Also, keep in mind, more is not better, but I like to say sometimes it can be. If you look at this plot here, it should be obvious that at some point, if you keep adding more and more and more seed, you're not going to get any return on your investment. You're not going to get more growth and yield because the amount of space is limited. Resources are now limited. All those seeds cannot germinate and grow. But if we look at that same photo in a different context, notice that is inside an enclosure cage, and we have a tremendous amount of biomass. But if we look outside with heavy browsing pressure from deer, you see that at least in the short term, you have some open space, meaning there's still some bare ground there. So if this is your context, this level of either deer density or acreage of food plot on your property, I think it is viable to at least try upping the seeding rate a little bit. I'm not saying you double it or triple it or do anything like that, but then I would say experiment with that on your property. Maybe you can add 10%, 20% more seed and just see what kind of stand you get. But keep in mind that you can't just keep adding more and more. It'll be diminishing returns very quick. So just a little qualifier, we always say more is not better, but I think there are a few cases where a little bit more could be a little better. These are kind of our guiding principles for the criteria necessary for us to recommend a particular forage. And it's very simple. Number one, production. You need to produce a lot of forage biomass. If the forage doesn't produce a lot, then there's going to be better options. Protein, and it doesn't have to exclusively be protein. We look at digestible energy and some other things, but primarily we want it to have a higher level of protein. Those that get close to or exceed 20% are fantastic. That's what we're always looking for. Palatability, very simply, it does not matter how much you grow, how much protein there is. If deer are not going to eat it, then it's of no use to you or to the deer. So we always want to make sure that forage is palatable. And believe it or not, there are particular plants that are very high yielding in terms of biomass with a lot of protein that deer just are not going to eat. So we always want to make sure that the deer are going to eat it. And then last, we want to be wise about price. We don't want to spend money on forages that aren't necessary. So which forages are most cost effective for you?